How did you know your children had diabetes? So with Paisley, we've got a different diagnosis story for each child. So Paisley was the first diagnosed. Paisley is my middle child. She's the youngest daughter. She's now 5. Paisley was diagnosed at the age of 1, 3 days before her second birthday. Paisley become really ill, literally like in the space of days. So it starts off with tiredness. So you've got the 4 T's. Paisley had all 4 of them, which at the time I didn't have a clue about type 1 diabetes. So tiredness, she wouldn't walk more than a few steps, which was very unlike Paisley. Thirst, she was waking up through the night asking for more drinks, wanting to drink anything that she could. Then it was toilet. So Paisley was still in nappies at this point because she was only 1, and she was soaking through every single nappy, no matter how quickly and often I was changing the nappies. Then the final T is thinness. So one of the nights Paisley woke up for a drink in the middle of the night. She'd soaked through a nappy, a bed was soaked, Paisley was soaked, so I needed to strip the bed off, strip Paisley off cleaner, and as I was cleaning Paisley, I'd noticed that she'd lost a lot of weight drastically, and I mean it was as if it happened overnight. So that was when the worry kicked in. I actually thought to myself, Paisley's got cancer. Like, it was to that extreme. Like, I was like, what the hell is going on here? It was awful. So I contacted the doctors the next day. This was during COVID, so the doctors would not see us face to face. Tried to fob us off with antibiotics over the phone, saying it was just viral. Something was telling me that it was more than that, so I asked them to see her face to face. Again, they refused, so we took her to A&E, and she was diagnosed in A&E. They'd done a finger prick after firstly thinking that she had a viral chest infection. They'd given her an inhaler because her breathing was getting heavier. That was her body trying to get rid of the ketones in every possible way that they could. So the heavier breathing was the body trying to like get rid of those toxins. Then it was like something just clicked in the doctor's head when we were talking about the symptoms and stuff. The doctor asked if they could do a glucose test, and I said, just do anything that you need to do. I just want to make sure that she's okay before I leave this hospital. So they done a glucose test, and then it just went crazy. There was doctors and nurses running in and out. And yeah, I think I've got PTSD off that because it was just horrific. We nearly lost Paisley. She was so sick. Her ketones were at 5.5 and her glucose was 37.5. There's actually a video on our profile somewhere where you see Paisley in the hospital just before she done the glucose test, where she's just had the inhaler, and you can just see how poorly she was. I don't know how she was stood up at that moment, because after that she was just so weak as soon as she got in the hospital bed and everything. Moving on to Eevee. Eevee was diagnosed in June 23, so June just gone. She was 6, Eevee's now 7. She's 6 months into diagnosis. Obviously, because we already had Paisley diagnosed, we are more aware of the symptoms, and we're more wary, so we do finger pricks for the other kids anyway when they're showing, like, even if it's just one side, like a bit more tired than usual, things like that, a bit run down. We finger pricked Eevee because she said that she felt really shaky, but there was no reason that she should have felt shaky at that time. So she hadn't been running around wild, she wasn't in the heat, she'd been eating, things like that. So we finger pricked her, and it shows up a low reading. So we give her something to eat, checked it again about an hour later, and her levels had come back up to normal. But later that night, I then finger pricked her around 2 hours after she'd had her dinner at bedtime, so I had to wake her up to do it, and her levels were rising. That night they'd gone up to, I think it was either 16.9 or 18 point something. So I contacted Paisley's out of hours team and explained the situation. Because she didn't have ketones, we didn't need to take her into hospital there and then, but we did need to keep monitoring her and make sure that her glucose levels had come down, and there was no ketones. So the next day we spoke to the consultant from the hospital, which is Paisley's consultant. We come up with a plan of action. We took Eevee in for urgent blood tests to check her HbA1c levels, which obviously then confirmed a couple of days later that she was actually type 1 as well. And then we started insulin with Eevee, and that's Eevee's diagnosis. Now Louis is a little bit different, so I finger pricked Louis one morning. I was starting to get a bit of a feeling that it was heading in that direction with Louis, So I finger pricked him one morning because he said that he'd felt really tired, and I was thinking he's normally bouncing off the walls in the morning, like excited to go to school or, you know, for whatever we're going to do that day. And he just wasn't himself, so I finger pricked him, and it was a low reading, which it is common to have a low reading, by the way, with a non-type 1 diabetic, so don't be worried about that if you finger pricked yourself. But there's also that side of it where just be aware that you could have a low reading because your body is overproducing the insulin, working harder, and then your levels are just dropping then. So just be wary of that, but don't panic. Do you know what I mean? Like, don't worry yourselves. But he had a low reading. 2 hours after breakfast time, he had a higher reading. So then I contacted the hospital again. The hospital said, bring him up, we'll do a little plan of action. So we done a finger prick HbA1c, which was actually okay. And we also done blood tests while we were there. So the blood tests that we done were random glucose. We got his antibodies for type 1 checked. And then we also done, it's where they check how his pancreas is producing insulin. I'm not exactly sure on that one, but that's what was done. And then about 2 to 3 weeks later, so we had the Libra on for a week, which was showing higher glucose readings, which he shouldn't have had, but he was still coming back down to. The blood test results come back that he's got 2 or more positive antibodies for type 1, and that's causing the spikes in his glucose levels, so abnormal glucose levels, which confirms that he is going to be type 1 completely soon. It could be weeks, it could be months, it could be a couple of years, but it's called stage 2 type 1 diabetes. So it's happening, but we don't know how fast it's going to progress, and he's going to start insulin. So what's happening now is he's getting monitored. He's got Libras to wear, so he's got a prescription of Libras. He will have appointments when the girls have appointments, and he'll have a finger prick HbA1c to check if his HbA1c is rising and how fast it's rising, if it is. And that's it. So we go from there. So as soon as Louis' levels go higher and stay higher, that's when he'll start insulin. And that's it. Any more questions, just feel free to let me know, and I will answer as best as I can. Hopefully that explains it without me waffling on too much. Thank you for asking.